good time of day and welcome back to Kodsnack. In this episode I had the opportunity, thanks to Hogia, to talk once again to Woody Zuill, the discoverer of mob programming and thinker of many interesting ideas, teller of stories and so much more. I think it was really fun to get the opportunity to talk again. But before we begin, a quick but huge thank you to everyone who supports the podcasts by giving us a little bit of money through coffee. You too can become one of them at ko-fi.com/kodsnack, Kodsnack. And you can choose whether you want to give us a one-time donation or a monthly one. And if you give us monthly donations of €5 or more, you get some really nice stickers in the mail. If I may say so myself, people seem to agree, so that's great. And if you give us €10 or more per month, you reach the barista level, and then you get a huge thank you in the podcast right here. 1,000 thanks to Andreas Legell, Brother, Ingo, and Tobbe Lundberg for your support. And if you don't want to support us with money, please give us a review somewhere. Tell someone about the podcast you think would like it. Share a link. Spread the word. But remember, you're a fantastic person, whether you support us with money or not. Now, on to the episode.
I don't know if you recall, but we actually talked at Öredel one year.
Oh, really?
On stage, 2018 turns out.
Yeah, 2018. So I was there in 2013, 2014, and 2018.
Yeah. So, and I listened to the recording the other day, and one of the last things we said was, we could have talked for longer here.
There's always a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so I feel like this is like the second.
This is the continuation of that.
Yes.
I liked Ordev. That's a very good conference.
Yeah. It was really good. Last year, I guess, not this year. Hasn't been yet.
Yeah, I was there in 2013 and then in 2014, and then came back. I guess 2018 must have been like their 10-year anniversary or something.
Yeah, at least, if not more.
It was some kind of an anniversary.
Okay, maybe 15. I think that doesn't matter. That's
yeah, I can talk forever.
I know you can talk.
Yeah, there's no end. It's like it's my best thinking time when I'm talking, in a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's so fascinating how different people think or work with thoughts in different ways. Yeah. Some people need to think first and then they say it. And I like to write things down, and other people really work while they think while they talk.
Yeah, there's an old saying. It's how do I know what I think until I see what I say?
Yeah.
And so that's
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think just stuck in. I guess we'll start officially then. Welcome to Kodsnack. I'm here with two guests, Woody and Martin.
Thank you.
And maybe you, Martin, should start by saying where we are, what we're doing here.
Yeah, sure. So we're at Hogia, the Hogia office in Stenungsund. And we've had the pleasure of having Woody Zuill here all week. So all Monday, we had presentations with over 100 people from Hogia, and developers and testers and product owners. And Tuesday, we had workshops. And today, we've had workshops all day as well. So it's been great, fantastic.
And it's mob programming focused, I guess.
Well, yeah, sure. It's been that's been the focus, but I mean also many other things that we've talked about and discussed and learned. That's not purely mobbing is like one solution to many problems that we have as development teams, and we've discussed all those problems as well. And,
it's all related to the idea of collaboration.
Yeah.
And many of the issues that we have in many organizations relate back to how effective we are at collaboration or not.
Yeah. Because here at Hogia, you work quite a bit in mob programming style, on and off.
Yeah, we have a few teams that have started to work in that manner, and my team has been doing it for a couple of years. So we've had some experience with it, and but we can always improve, and you can always, learn new things, and so it's been great to have Woody here. Can both give the teams that haven't done it a new perspective maybe, and give the teams that have done it for a while a new boost and tools to take it further.
So you had a mix of participants here who had both worked in mobs before and who hasn't at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Must be a really good thing as well, like getting some fresh perspectives from both sides.
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit before, that even if you've done something before, it's always good to go back and hear what someone who's new thinks and does, and also how it's introduced, because I've inevitably forgotten a bunch of the...
Yeah, that's sort of the idea of the beginner's mind. Like once we're experiencing something, we can no longer even consider what it was like when we didn't understand it.
Yeah.
So it changes. When we hear that beginner's mind reflecting on something, it will help us realize the things that we've taken for granted.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth involving beginners and people at all levels.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you you must get that pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Seeing all the things.
Yeah, it always surprises me how there's some questions I hear frequently, and one I hear frequently is, what do we do if we're all at different levels of experience? And I say, we just work together.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, that sounds like the ideal.
It's kind of like,
combination.
Exactly.
Not just people who have been the same experience level for a long time and set in their ways.
That's exactly it. When we're set in our ways, it's harder to innovate. It's harder to see things from a new perspective that could help us a great deal.
Yeah.
So if we've been doing something for a long time, we may be losing our capability just because we're relying on the solutions that have worked for us in the past.
Yeah.
It's good to be exposed to different thinking. It may be better, it may not be better, but it will spark new ideas either way.
Yeah. Do you still get new ideas each time about it?
Yes, and I force myself to have an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to not have an open mind.
Yeah.
But the overarching concept is you have to maintain curiosity.
Yeah.
If you can maintain curiosity, then we can always be open. Why is that different? And what would that be like? If we ask ourselves those questions, but you have to be practiced about it, because otherwise you fall back into what's easy.
Yeah.
And that works for a while, but that becomes stale.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, like if I worked the same way I did 20 years ago, I wouldn't be able to be effective anymore. We need the new thinking.
Yeah. So does mob programming as a concept keep changing in your mind as well?
Well, the overall thing is that no matter where I go, it's still a new thing because it's not really commonly done. And I think that it's easy to fall back on when under pressure, to fall back on just splitting the work up and having people work individually. Yeah. So I don't think the world of programming, like even when I ask for, if I'm at a conference, how many of you are doing pair programming? And it might be 10% or something or less. Yeah, so there's going to be fewer people doing mob programming. So it's still a new thing, I think. Yeah. And maybe it will never become the way of working, but I like it if we can have an alternative way of working. When I first started programming, I always worked alone because I was the only programmer. And for 15 years, I worked alone. Yeah. And then somebody told me about pair programming, and I was already old enough to be able to think, that's interesting. Maybe I should try it. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, I probably would have said something like, that can't work.
It would just slow me down.
Yeah, but as you get older, you start realizing every time you say that can't work about something, they're going to prove you're wrong.
Yeah, someone has already done it.
So you quit saying that and just say, okay, that's a novel idea. Let's give it a try.
Yeah.
And the secret to it is you can't just give it a try. You have to try it enough to get some skill with it. And then you can make a decision whether it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
A lot of people I've been to places where people go, yeah, we tried pair programming, but it didn't work for us. Oh, well, tell me about that. Yeah, we tried that for a whole 2 hours. And it's like, okay, try it for a year or two and then tell me it won't work.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's really underrated to stick with something for a bit longer.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard someone who I felt was approaching a better line. They said, like, we did strict test-driven development now for, I think it was 2 months. So now we know which parts are for us and which parts are not.
That's a much better experiment to do. Now, I know when I was a kid, I started working at a very young age, and the boss that hired me was in a plant nursery. I was interested in horticulture and raising plants, and he was hybridizing roses and daylilies and other plants. And all the learning that you do there can take years.
Yeah.
So there's nothing where you say, oh, we tried that. because it could take 2 or 3 years to get a result. If you take a plant and you graft something onto it, it's going to be at least a season before you see any results whatsoever.
Yeah.
So you get used to the slow pace of the experiments that you do. And I watched this gentleman who I'd worked for, when I was just a boy, and he was very focused. And the experiments would go to come up with one good new variety he really liked could mean 1,000 things to try.
Yeah.
And it was very controlled, because if you just let it, if you don't control it, there's too many variables for you to know what made the result you wanted.
Yeah.
So you can't duplicate it.
No.
So you need to know, it needs to be very controlled.
Yeah.
Now, we can't do that with everything.
No.
But it's good to try something long enough to see what are the results.
Yeah.
It takes patience.
Yeah. And I guess modern software culture is almost a little bit at odds with that, because we're so much prioritizing getting short iteration, getting things done fast,
Yes.
trying something more. But you mean we have to try this for a long time?
Well, so those short iterations are really powerful, because that's what allows us to steer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the long range experiments are still made up of many tiny steps. So it's I think short iterations and the ability to steer is critical. If I have 3 things that I think are critical that I'm reflecting on a lot right now, is we need to be good at collaboration, and it benefits us to stop thinking that whatever we're doing for collaboration now is good enough.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing is steering. We need to be able to steer towards better. And we need to be able to always turn up the good, because those are 3 things I'm focused on, because we often are focused on solving problems, and the good things that are happening around us, we have lost focus to the degree where we're not even noticing them. So the good things that happen by accident, we need to be aware that they happened, so we can take advantage of serendipity, which is, the good things that happen by accident. If we're not paying attention to them, they just float away. Yeah. It's like, they say it's like a river. The good things are always floating down, but if we're not paying attention, they're passing us.
Yeah, we don't have to think about that.
Yeah,
so we worry about something.
We're always solving problems, and that probably distracts us from noticing the good things.
Yeah.
And there's other things too, but those are some things I'm really focusing on.
Yeah. So I guess the steering and the good parts go very much together.
Yes.
But is there anything more in particular about steering?
So steering, I've seen many organizations plan, they specify something good they want, and they plan how to get it. Mm-hmm. And that's when our focus on getting the thing we thought we wanted hampers our ability to get something that is actually a really good thing. So when we don't get the thing we want and we keep focusing on that, the other good things that are happening around us don't get noticed. So I do believe the steering is necessary. And the example I'm using right now is, if I were to offer you the very best bicycle in the world, free, I'm going to give you this very best bicycle. It's like all the best parts, super lightweight, super great parts, but we forgot to add steering. Would you be able to ride that bicycle? You cannot ride that bicycle. No. Because a bicycle by nature, its very nature is you need to be steering all the time. Now, there are probably people who could make that bike still work, but without the steering, we don't want it. No. So how frequently do we want to be able to steer our software development efforts? Maybe not as frequently as we need to steer a bike.
No.
But how frequent could we steer? Can we turn up the good on steering to such a degree that it starts being too much? I don't know if I've seen anybody do that yet. I talked to some people who worked in one of the big software companies who write operating systems. And they had one operating system that many years ago that wasn't as good as they had hoped it would be. And then they started reworking it, and the second version of it was much better. But when he described it to me, he said, we went after the wrong things. We should have started figuring out where we were going much sooner than just going where we thought we needed to go. And the way he explained it to me, it was really about the steering. They were going for point A. They didn't even know where point B might be. And if they had a good steering mechanism, they would have got there much, much earlier. So that was 20 or more years ago when they told that story to me, and it really got me thinking about, well, how frequently should we steer? And part of that steering means people need to be using it, whatever it is we're creating, for us to get actual usable feedback. That means the work that the software is meant to do, or whatever its purpose is, has to be attempting to fulfill those people's needs. And that means we need to deploy it to real use way more frequently. In the days I started programming, it was very infrequent. I worked on projects that would deliver a new version once a year. Yeah. And then some people already at that time were delivering a new thing daily or once a week, but very few. Internal software could be done that way. In the old days, you couldn't deliver external software. There was no internet you could download stuff from easily. So a big part of steering is also including real users who are actually using it for what you want. That feedback is invaluable. But there are many other ways to get feedback. If you're writing software that's going to be used in airliners or something, you may not be able to deliver that software daily, but you still need to deliver it to some kind of a prototype environment, maybe some kind of a testing environment really frequently. And they do that. Many organizations do that nowadays.
So when we're talking about steering in this case, are we talking about adjusting according to feedback?
Yes.
Yes, because I realized I fell into a trap there in the start, because steering sounds a little bit like a dedicated person over here doing something. But it's still about adjusting.
And that happens at different levels.
Yeah.
So if we sit down together, and let's say you were a product expert and say, we want to add this new feature. So we sit down together and we talk about it and we start doing a little bit of code. You see it actually come to life on the screen. You go, well, no, that's not really the way I want it. That feedback is the beginning.
Yeah.
So you could do drawings and descriptions all day long, but until we actually turn it into code, we don't really know what we're looking at. Yeah. So I've seen people do it on paper. We do paper prototypes, but until we start seeing it in code, it's like there's an old saying, it's hard to know what you want until you actually get to use it. And I think that's part of this here.
Yeah.
So that's one level of steering. Another one is, okay, we kind of had it getting started here. Can we get that into the hands of someone who can actually use it for what we need it to be used for? So there's another level. But another one is, can we get it far enough where we can even really deploy it? We might start going, oh, this thing is going to be harder to code than we thought. Yeah. That's feedback we want. And if a tester's there with us, we're going to discover this simple thing we're doing is going to be really hard to test, or this complicated thing we're doing is going to be really easy to test. Yeah. We want that feedback earlier.
Yeah.
There's so many levels to that, but that's what allowed us to steer towards the real goal we want, and we don't know what it is till we start doing stuff.
Yeah.
This is really a critical part of it. We think we know what we want. We'll discover it's something. This is the process of discovery. We'll discover it's actually something different, but we can't do it if it isn't easy to steer.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies to how we collaborate, of course, and the process of finding a better way of collaborating.
So that's exactly right. The steering in our product can also be applied to the innovation of our processes we follow. Innovation isn't just on product, it's on everything we do. And if we don't allow ourselves to innovate, the end result we will become stale in what we do, and those organizations that are allowing themselves to innovate will surpass us. Now, whether that's meaningful or not depends on a lot of things. But I would argue that innovation has to be an important part of what we're doing. Maybe one of the most important parts of what we're doing in processes as well as in our product.
And I think it was a good thing that came up the other day was that for that to happen, there needs to be like a safe space within the organization that allows the teams to actually innovate and come up with these things. That's the important thing. The important thing is not that everyone starts mob programming or software teaming now, but give them the space to innovate, come up with
this is a very important point, is that as soon as we start standardizing our practices, we are stifling the innovation. So I've worked in organizations where somebody has a success and they say, well, what did you do? And then we think that we need to do with everybody.
Oh, yes.
That actually is going to destroy our ability to get better. We need to be aware of it, but we should not make that our standard. The moment we do that, we stifle or stagnate our ability to innovate. So making it easier this is about self-organizing, self-directed, self-purpose, self-directed, self-organizing. They all sound very similar, but even team to team in the same organization, sameness doesn't necessarily make improvement.
No.
So it's different. So this depends on what domain we're in. When we're in the Cynefin ideas of domain, when we're in the clear domain, standardization could be a very good thing. We could say, just as an example, we want all the milk to be safe to drink.
Yeah.
So we make sure we get processes that make it 100% safe to drink. We don't want to just experiment with that kind of safety.
No.
But in some domains, all we get is what worked for the moment. It's like in the Cynefin domain, we would say in some spaces, A plus B is always C. In some spaces, A plus B isn't always the right formula to use. In some spaces, A plus B is never the same. So we need to figure out what space we're in and then start thinking about how do we get the improvements we'd like to have. In that discovery space, it's very difficult. So we need to work at a higher level than the work itself. How do we make it where innovation is easy to do? How do we make it where innovation is that taking the risks won't destroy our company and things like that? We need to take those risks.
Yeah. And that balance of not making everything a process that goes stale is really interesting to me as well.
Yes.
Because it feels so easy. Like you said, this is a success story. Let's do it that way. But I guess that's where you should start and then apply. Start doing it, get the feedback and do some steering on your own within your team.
There's a lot that's been written on this. So I'm not a researcher by any means. I'm not a systems thinker really. But I read a lot of systems thinkers. And this is the essence. So Kahneman says success is talent plus luck. Great success is a little more talent and a lot more luck. So if we don't understand that, we're going to trick ourselves into thinking it's what we did that gave us the success. There's this thing called Bryan's Law, Bryan's first law. I'll misquote it, but I'm close. He says there's a point in the life of every organization where time runs out to continue succeeding in spite of ourselves. In other words, the success isn't because of what we're doing, it's in spite of what we're doing.
Yeah, we have this process and we're still succeeding.
That's right. So we think it's because of what we did that made the success, but it was much more about it was the right thing at the right time. We happened to be the organization that was there at the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
So if we just follow what we did before, we'll go, why isn't this repeatable? That's because it was mostly the randomness or the luck. And I've read at least, I would say 5 or 6 books that share this point in different ways. One of them is of course, Thinking Fast and Slow. There's The Drunkard's Walk by Leonard Mlodinow. There was, and these are books I read more than several years ago. That one, somebody will correct us. But, irrational rationality or rational rationality, you know the one I'm talking about. So it's like we can't keep thinking that what we're doing is the right thing. That's survivorship bias.
Oh yeah.
We think it was what we did, and therefore we need to repeat that. Yeah, this is not easy.
No. I mean, I keep thinking that there must be a ton of things we're doing at work just because we're used to doing them.
That's what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But how do I make myself see it more clearly so I can try dropping a few of them?
And that's what open-mindedness is about. I don't have a good definition in my mind, but the overall idea of open-mindedness is understanding that we need to rethink the things we already believe. If we just accept what we already believe as being truth, then we will fall into the confirmation bias or this other thing they call desirability bias. Confirmation bias is we will have a slanted or a biased view towards the information we gather, and we'll even have a biased search for information that will keep us believing the thing we already believe. And desirability bias, at least the way I understand it, is we will search for the information that will prove the thing we wish was true. So neither of these is particularly good. We need to find a way to stay open-minded. And one way I do that is by talking with people who are either have a contrary mind to what I have, or they're willing to be more open-minded than me and act as a devil's advocate to point out the weak spots in my conversation or my thoughts. And we do that through conversation. So it's hard to stay focused for more than a few moments, not because of the internet. That's just human nature.
Yeah.
And I think it's human nature because if we stayed focused on one thing too long, something else is going to eat us.
Yeah.
Right? So we always have to be aware and allow ourselves to be distracted at the right moment in the right way.
Yeah.
So we need to be good at maintaining focus long enough, but also letting the new things come in. I don't have an easy answer to it.
No.
I know what I do for myself. I have stopped doing this recently because I have other mechanisms. But one thing I did for years is I would make a list of what I thought was really true, and then I would start picking the top one on the list. It doesn't matter what order, and I'll say, "What am I wrong about on this?" And that's what I would look at today. And so I'd look up something on the internet and find somebody who thought of it differently.
Yeah.
Or what I really like doing right now is looking for, where did this thought I have originate?
Oh, yeah.
Where did that come from into my head?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing original in my head,
No.
right? Everything came from someone else.
Yeah.
And I have people that I talk with who can point that out to me. I will tell them an idea I have, and they say, "Oh, that was this Austrian economist," or "That came from this psychologist, 80 years ago." The beginnings of all of my thoughts started somewhere else, and they can help me think more clearly because anything I believe is wrong. I just don't yet know how wrong and in what way.
Yeah, exactly. Which parts?
So it's like the more certain we are, this is the saying I use. It is the things we most believe that hide our biggest mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's where I try to go. Yeah. But I know I'm not even close to perfect with that, but I try to be.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm failing over and over with that. But it's like the conversation we're having here right now, we can already point out 5, 10, 15 things I've said that should be scrutinized.
Yeah, probably.
So anyone who has a contrary idea to one I have is a voice I want to hear.
Yeah.
But I've heard most of the contrary voices on most of the things I'm interested in. So it's not like I don't know they exist. And
So you don't consider yourself a systems thinker?
Yes.
What type of thinker do you think of yourself as?
So I think that I am a student of systems thinking, and I'm a student of the biases. So I don't know if I will ever graduate out of that.
Yeah.
But somebody told me a really good analogy recently. They were using a martial arts theme. I don't know anything about martial arts. And this fellow was near his his death. He was very old, considered a highest level expert in what he did. And the guy said, "So now, you are always a black belt." And he said, "No, the next step in my life is I'm going to be a white belt again, because I'm going to a space I don't know." Yeah. And so that, I don't know if that was a made up story or whatever, but it's kind of like, as soon as I feel like I'm expert in something, that means the next thing I'm going to be starting all over again. Yeah. And so it's always a constant reinvention. That's why I like working with people who are very less expert than me, because they are not going to be trapped into the same thinking that's got me to where I am. Yeah. It's the Max Planck idea that science doesn't advance by convincing the old scientists of new ideas. The old scientists need to pass away. Yeah. And the new ideas will come forward with the new scientists. Yeah. I don't want to have to die for the new ideas to come forward. But I know the inevitable will eventually come. But I don't have any easy answers to any of this. No. And I wish I did.
Are there any interesting sort of questions coming up at the moment, or thoughts that you haven't heard before? Or?
So the most recent thing I heard a fellow talking about that I really liked. So there's several new ways of working that I've been enjoying learning about. And one aspect is, how short can we make iterations? Now, I'm used to working without iterations now. When I'm doing, let's say, coding and working with somebody, I don't care about, are we going to work in a 2-day cadence or a 1-week cadence? It's more event-based than time-based.
Yeah.
So that's something that always intrigued me, but I love that. Another thing is the focus on innovation. I was talking to a gentleman whose his view and the way he works, the company that he was working within, they're not focused on delivering what the customer wants. They're focused on innovation. They're not focused on profits. They're focused on innovation. If we become expert in innovation, we will also be delivering things people will want, and we'll also be finding a way to make a profit with it. But what should we focus on?
Yeah.
I just like that. I hear people, we're customer focused, or we're profit focused.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to hear that alternative.
That sounds very appealing.
It sounds very appealing. And I think for our processes, and Martin said it a little bit ago, the processes is somewhere where we really need to innovate.
Yeah.
So I like that idea.
Yeah.
And there's other things like this too. I definitely think that the future, it implies there's going to be a lot of change, and we cannot know what that change is going to be. So we have to be prepared to understand that we're not in control of that. And we are going to need to be even better at innovating, as the future falls on top of us. Yeah. There's no easy answers, and there never has been.
No.
We can't skip to the end.
No.
Oh, I read a wonderful thing. I don't remember. I wish but the person said, look, you don't play music to get to the end of the piece.
No. That's a good point.
And so this is one of the brilliant thinkers. I'm sorry, whoever's listening to this, that I don't have the name of that person on the top. It was something and I think that's the point of life. And that's the point he was making. We don't live our life just so we can get to the end of it. No. We live our life to the fullest so we can get the life that we are living. We want to experience the life that we are living.
Yeah.
So I think that's, so not being a systems thinker. I think of this systems thinkers. These are people who have really explored the things I find intriguing. And I can name names there, Russell Ackoff and John Gall and Deming and, there's a dozen of them, Donella Meadows, that I've read their books, and it's intriguing to me to see that bigger, overarching concepts that we think we're in control of something when in reality we're not.
Yeah.
And so we need to just accept it and understand. So I want to take it a step further. I'm not sure I can, but when I find someone who has, like somebody who really understands, chaos theory or whatever, I want to read those things or at least watch a video where they're speaking somewhere so I get an idea. Is that something I need to explore? There's so many good ideas to explore.
Yeah.
And we let's be careful not to trap ourselves into the thinking. It was Feynman who said, you've got to be careful not to fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool.
Yeah,
so
I really want to be fooled.
That's a great quote. I saw that in a presentation by Dave Farley, and I went up to him immediately afterwards. Said, "Can I copy your slide? Because I want to use that."
Yeah.
He said, "Sure." He's a very nice gentleman.
Yeah.
You probably have interviewed him.
No, I don't think I have. Actually,
Just
put him on the list.
Yeah, put him on the list. He's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, there's always more to learn.
There's always too much more to learn. That's what I love.
Yeah.
That's what I love. It's like when I was a child. You go to the library and you can walk down an aisle you've never been down before. No. The internet is not as good because with the internet, you start walking down that aisle that you haven't walked before and they'll keep giving you the stuff that they think you want to see.
Exactly.
It used to not be that way.
No.
But at the library, I could still walk into a big library and go, I've never walked in this area. What am I going to see here?
Yeah.
You get to see things you've never would have thought of looking at before. I love that.
Yeah. Is that a tip for everyone how to find new stuff they haven't thought of, going to a library?
So actually, it's funny. Libraries are a really good thing, and librarians are really good. You can ask them any kind of oddball question, and they'll find a place for you to explore, which is really hard to get on the internet. Well, everyone will just tell you how stupid you are.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a different algorithm.
They have a different algorithm.
They actually generate something based on knowledge.
But that's from their perspective. But their perspective is going to be different than the algorithm that somebody thought of how can we gather what someone should want to know.
Yeah.
Their algorithm is from a very specific, their life and their abilities that they've put together. This is what makes librarians great.
Yeah.
You know, their experiences are unique to that particular person. Yeah, that's something to take advantage of.
Yeah.
You get that also at some museums.
Oh yeah, of course.
Some museums you have to be even be able to work there, you have to be an expert in those things. So that's good to talk to someone who's like someone who reenacts a certain period in history. They're not actors. They're experts, you know, in that period of history at some museums.
Yeah.
Not everywhere and not in every part of the world. But yeah, there's so many opportunities.
Yeah.
Just walk on down a different path.
Yeah, exactly.
Just find a different. It's not necessarily the path less traveled.
Yeah.
It might be a path lots of people are walking
Yeah.
on. It's just a different path than the one you're
exactly.
on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Open a new door.
Well, we barely cracked the door open here.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know what's going to be on the other side of
No,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the exciting part.
That's the exciting
I
part.
guess it's time to crack open that door as well.
Yeah.
Start to...
Well, this has been a joy.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah.
both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Tack för att just du lyssnar på Kodsnack. Om du vill stödja oss, varför inte tipsa en bekant om podden? Eller lämna en recension i till exempel iTunes eller något annat ställe där det går att sätta betyg på poddar. Du kan också stödja oss genom att köpa oss en kopp kaffe på Coffee. ko-fi.com/kodsnack. Alla pengar går direkt till att göra podden bättre och trevligare. Du kan också komma och hänga i vår Slack-kanal. Länk finns på kodsnack.se, precis som alla andra länkar och all annan info kopplat till varje avsnitt. Sist men inte minst finns det också en länk till vår Spreadshop-butik där du kan köpa tröjor och andra prylar med kodsnacktryck. Återigen, tusen tack för att du lyssnar. Vi hörs.
Let me put it this way, Mr. Raymer. The 9000 series is the most reliable computer ever made. No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted information. We are all, by any practical definition of the words, foolproof and incapable of error.